I believe that advisors that just move for the check, right? It rarely ends up working out for them exponentially. Like they rarely end up being more fulfilled when they make the move, right? They solve the short-term problem. But when you make a move to plug into something like this, it can change your life.
Welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa, brought to you by Elite Consulting Partners. It's the only podcast offering unfiltered guidance and the direct advice for all things concerning financial advisors, RIAs, and the practitioners in the wealth management business. And now, welcome to the show.
I have a friend, they moved to Raymond James several years ago, and when they went there, or before they went there, because I knew their business, I said, you know, when you're ready to move, you need to go to Raymond James. They ended up going to Raymond James. And I think, and I'm not for sure if the exact number, but I think in the last 4 years, they have done, 3 or 4 years, they've done 13 deals. Yeah. And they went from 4 million to I think over 7 million in revenue. And this is all they focus on. This is all they prospect with. Forget about their existing clients. It's all they prospect with, right? So with that said, maybe let's go back to the IBex and the education and the, hey, Ken, awesome. You basically showed me you opened my eyes. Now what do I do? The conference, like it's once a year or whatever it is, that's fine. But how do I now deliver this and grow my business doing this?
You know, as most advisors know, you have to ask for the order. And I'll tell you that we had advisors, they started asking for the order. They wanted a deeper learning. So we looked around, it didn't exist again, right? So we said, what do we do? So if there's anyone listening to this that has experience with small and medium businesses, you might have experience with local roundtable business owner groups. There's many of them. There's Vistage, there's YPO, there's CEO Roundtable. You know, the business owners essentially pay to get together on a monthly or recurring basis with a round table of folks like themselves and just share what's working, challenge each other, learn from each other. And a lot of times these meetings where they take place over lunch after, 45 minutes or an hour of pushing each other and sharing problems, and that business owner can't see around corners, but maybe another business owner in that group has dealt with the same issue and they can help each other, right? So we kind of locked on this concept of small group learning, right? So we created our secondary program, the behind the national conference was a program called Masterclass, right? We started, I think the first year we put 12 or 13 advisors through it. We're putting 4 classes, almost 100 advisors through the program per year now. It's a year-long learning program. We spend 11 months, and where some of the content mirrors the conference, it's deep dives with lawyers, accountants, private equity firms, tax mitigation specialists, our most successful advisors. It's role playing. It's getting comfortable with how to have these conversations. It is deploying CRM systems and tracking systems very similar to those the investment bank uses. When they identify a company, 40 variables are captured on companies now. It's like who owns what. It's estimated value, timing of desired exit, where are there loopholes in management, and the personal information, birthdays, personal goals and objectives, family, all kinds of things to allow that advisor to drip on that relation in a systemic way. We developed in partnership with marketing an ability to rebrand a website in practice to be business owner focused, right? Who shows up at a website? Clients aren't coming to your website every day. It's the prospects that show up, right? You have to speak to that, and just continued reinforcement of all the conversations. We do extensive work, and if you are introduced to a business owner and they say, what do you do? How do you answer that question, right? You never get that second chance to make the first impression. We work on that in excruciating detail just to be able to be differentiated and immediately go to a substantive, not aggressive like a push, but a constructive conversation where the business owner, client is coming toward you, right? If you try and sell somebody something or walk towards somebody, they'll walk away. That's right. But if you create a a sense of I've got knowledge. Qualify. You don't have to qualify to talk to me, but I would like to help you, right?
Yeah.
And if it appears substantive and it appears something different that they hadn't heard, even if the advisor backs up, that business owner is still chasing them or walking
Yeah,
toward
and they
them.
say, what do you do? You say, well, I help business owners maximize the value of their business at exit or something to that effect. And they're going to go, what does that mean? And that just opens the door to a conversation.
After I've had advisors in our learning programs for 3 or 4 years, and trust me, this stuff, it's a learning cycle, right?
Yeah.
You've got to learn the conversations, and these deals themselves can take 5, 6, 7, 8 months, right, to accomplish. But for the advisors that have really sunk into this, after about 2 years in the learning program, I put them up on stage and I was like, let me ask you, seriously, we have not discussed this, but with what you've learned, if a business owner will really open up to you and share goals and objectives, fears, what they're hoping to accomplish, do you believe or can you impact the value of that business, the probability of them achieving their goals, and even the timeline in getting there? And universally, the answer becomes yes, we can do that. That's the way the program was developed. So I get back to the masterclass. Now we have the 11-month learning program. You graduate this, you're going to be good. I mean, so you spend 11 months a year dedicated deep with attorneys, private equity. I mean, I got advisors that can unpack the whole private equity benefits package, right? It's like, hey, listen, would a growth partner make sense to de-risk this? But in that de-risking, there's a coming off personal guarantees. There's understanding, not really an arbitrage, but the financial engineering, but behind a role, an equity role where you could sell 80%, but own maybe almost 40% of the asset going forward. Wait a minute. Explain to me how that works. Explain to me how I can recalibrate my lifestyle to potentially shed a lot of the administrative burdens that have made me want to get out of the business and stay in the business with the growth partner. By the way, you're only going to pick the growth partner that you think you can double or triple the business or more with, right? So there's all that knowledge that advisors come to out of this deep learning program. So when they're with a business owner, we caution them. Be honest. You are not a banker. You're trained to understand it and know it when you see it, but stay in your lane. But it's going to be an aggressively differentiated lane in conversation that you're in versus kind of the traditional advisor that's not comfortable or confident in that arena. Right. So that's the 11-month program, which has turned that program turns out our masterclass graduates, which absolutely are some of the fastest growing, I would say most accomplished, and just, I tell you, fun folks to hang out with relative to watching their practices grow and just accomplish all they're accomplishing.
Yeah, well, it's very, I think running, managing somebody's wealth and being a retirement plan specialist and all this stuff is very rewarding. But as a business owner, helping a business owner solve a lot of these problems and reconnect and provide wealth and whatever it is, I think that's really, really rewarding. Can we move to so you have the IBex conferences, you have the Masterclass, right? One of the areas that I think is really interesting, and let me just say this to my audience, and you've said this, there are firms that have like relationships with middle market investment boutique firms, right? They say, oh yeah, we can connect you with a banker, right? It's not like this, and this is why I wanted you on here, because none of those firms, there is nothing. I work with just about every firm out there, right? No other firm has this. No other firm empowers an advisor to be able to go after this business in a big way and support them in doing it, and is putting their money where their mouth is, meaning the IBex conference, all these other things, the relationships. Those are a lot of resources that you all are putting in the hands of advisors to grow their practices. So I appreciate all of that. And I want to just make sure my audience understands that this is not, if they say, well, my firm, I can work with a, boutique investment banking firm in my firm too. Not the same thing.
Well, I'll go a step further because I'm just getting started, right? Because I told you the advisors have taken it to entirely new levels.
Right.
So we have this masterclass graduate advisor that's now their website, their CRM systems, their tracking, their conversations are really starting to sound like a banker, right? But there was another statistic out there that we took a look at. And it basically, I got it from a First Trust presentation. They've got a fellow that focuses on COIs that runs around and does speaking. But he threw a slide up one day. I remember I was watching it, and it said something like 80% of wealth referrals over 25 million come from COIs. And that hit me because we have these advisors we're investing, but when push comes to shove in their localized markets, many of them did not have an ideal functional COI accounting or law firm relationship. And I said, listen, if we're going to take this to the nth level, we got to help with that. Now, at the beginning of the call, I said, my bankers, we're a coverage group. We do a couple of things. We cover private equity sponsors, mezzanine funds, institutional check writers. We cover law firms and accounting firms for the firm and the investment bank. And then we cover the advisor channel relative to relationship liaison when there are opportunities. But we have a tremendous Rolodex and many friends in the law firm and accounting firm world. And we made I made the decision to catalog and go to these partners and say, listen, would you like a localized introduction to one of our Navy SEAL advisory teams? So what I'm getting to is we made the decision to open up our network, our Rolodex, if you will, of national law firms and accounting firms. And we've been about an exercise within local markets of figuring out where we had top regional and national law firms, accounting firms. We went and figured out where they had offices and cataloged in major cities, everywhere where there was the look and feel of an ideal partner. On the accounting firms, you're talking about transaction advisory people, great audit people. In the law firms, you're talking about corporate M&A type folks. We cataloged them all, and then we started giving them away. And we did it on an exclusive basis. So say in Atlanta, we're close to 6 law firms and 6 accounting firms. You couldn't double up. You had to give one in one and create these insular hunting parties where they could count on each other, they could hunt together, they could collaborate with each other, and they could know that they were an insular hunting party group. Now, think about that from a firm perspective. I had to go to senior management. I have a boss in the investment bank, and I said, Ken, you cover law firms and accounting firms with all your bankers. Yes. And you want to give these relationships away to the advisors? I said, yes. And they said, well, hold on a second. They're sending us transactions right now. If you introduce the advisor to be part of this hunting party, and then the law firm or accounting firm introduces an opportunity and to that hunting party, and then the advisor introduces it to us, would we pay a referral fee on that? And I said, absolutely. And the initial response, they said, is that crazy? Well, crazy quickly became brilliant because the bankers couldn't boil the world. And ultimately, because we had trained them to everyone feel confident in them representing the look and feel in conversation, that's what also caused the referrals and the confidence to skyrocket. You have to, truth be told, in this world, you have to give to get a little bit. Right? So that started happening, which was amazing to see it happen. But yet the advisors came to us after this started to work, and they said, you know what, Ken, we want more. And I was like, I'm scratching my head, Frank, at this point. I'm like, okay, guys, ladies, tell me what else I can do to make all your dreams come true. And they said, well, here's what we're thinking. We love the conference and the content. We love the masterclass, the content. We've rebranded our website. We've got CRMs. We've learned your conversation. Now we have these wonderful law firm and accounting party relationships. We think there could or should be an opportunity to educate business owners and prospects in our market with the same content, but spin it. So it's more directed through our practice and our partners directly at the business owner audience in our community, which created the next program, which was called the BOSS event, or the Business Owner Strategy Summit. So the concept here was to develop centers of excellence, really driven by advisors in localized markets, partnering with their law firm and accounting firm over time in transactions. They may have met private equity or lower market partners to create half-day to three-quarter-day events where not selling, but from an entire working group, with that practice advisor acting as kind of the MC for the day, to bring business owners and say, listen, Business Owner Strategy Summit, these are concepts from all these working group lenses I wish someone had told me earlier than later relative to achieving full value in really proper planning for my business, delivered from all lenses, right? You're talking investment banking, accounting, legal, wealth advisory. Sometimes other consultants get involved. First one of these things we did in Atlanta, major law firm.
So you helped the local advisor.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've connected them with the team, the SWAT team, right? So you're now actually helping them build this event, summit.
Yep.
You're actually helping them with it. You're not just saying, "Yeah, it's a good idea. Let us know how it goes."
We're participating. I'm sending bankers to this. And our
Right.
lower market firms are sending a banker to this. And private equity is sending a partner to this. And the law firm and accounting firm are sending partners to this. You know what? This was advisor invented. And I didn't know how it was going to go. But the first one we did was in Atlanta. And we helped with the agenda. We helped with the programming. I got to tell you, Frank, first one I went to, I was amazed. Beautiful learning center. 32 companies in the room. We spent 3/4 of a day. And from all this working group lens, just quick poppy, 30, 45-minute modules from all these lenses, and everyone's chiming in. When the accountant is talking, the lawyers and bankers and advisors are chiming in, and same thing when the banker's talking. What was telling was within 12 months, 8 of those businesses had sold. We sold 2. Lower market partner firm in attendance sold 6.
Wow.
The law firm did sell side counsel on all 8. The accounting firm picked up a couple of quality of earnings. Those are transaction related exercises, and I think 1 or 2 new audit clients. And the advisor captured 100% of the assets from 8 transactions. We saw that and said, there's something to this.
Yeah, you think?
So that started the BOSS program, which for many law firms and accounting firms across the country, they're very familiar with it and are eager to participate. So we have that program kind of rolling out. So I guess when you think about it, I think very advisor driven. We've tried to create an environment where an advisor at or coming to Raymond James can take it as far as they want to take it. What I mean is, if you want to learn to have a substantive conversation and know it when you see it, if you trip over it, and feel comfortable that you can help reel it in and we can help you, that's possible. I mean, you don't even need any learning to accomplish that. If you just want to call the investment bank, we have people that will help coach and counsel and work through how you educate, how you add value, and how you create these introductions. But the different learning levels allow an advisor to know it when they see it, to frame their practice around it, to ultimately grow to becoming a perceived center of excellence in their market with full working group support. As if you're a business owner, all you need to do is plug in, and we can help you grow, accomplish proper planning, ultimately leading to a full or partial exit, or you can go public.
Right. So that's a lot. And when I talk about advisors making this part of their business, it's all of these things, right? Education. At the very beginning, you're not going to it's almost like be careful about getting into deep water too fast, right? At the beginning, just learn how to identify the opportunity and then go back to your team to say, hey, I have this situation, right? Is that how it starts? Like someone may come to you and say, hey, I have a situation. Yeah. How do I, maybe it's a client, like this one advisor I'm talking about well, a different guy, but I have one advisor that's actually joining the firm, and we actually requested that he, even though he's not joining until like January, February, because he's going to make this part of his business, that he's going to attend the conference in December. So he can learn how to have those conversations with his clients on the onset when he says, this is why I'm going to Raymond James, yeah. Right? But how do you work with an advisor when maybe, like you said, they don't want to necessarily make this their entire business, but they want to use this as a resource. They just come to you and say, hey, I got a client. This is what his business I think is worth. How do I even start the conversation with him?
To your point, we caution go slow. You don't want to get over your skis. We had one advisor. We sold a security company, and I want to say there were 3 owners and he had the CFO, so the lowest ownership position in the entity. I think we sold it, nice asset. I think we sold it. We paid about a $350,000 referral fee to that advisor, and I think he captured about $20 million. Not a big capture, but still a nice capture. He was excited. He calls me up and he says, "Ken, this was great. I got whatever the asset capture was. You paid me this. This is all I want to do." And the guy's name was Clay. And I said, "Clay," I go, "Are you sitting down?" He goes, "Before Zoom." He goes, "Yeah." I go, "Listen, hear me out. Nice shooting text. You did a great job. Don't quit your day job yet. But what I will tell you is the next time you see it, don't run away from it, run toward it." Right. And I think he introduced another one or two, and that one went to private equity, and private equity tripled it, and he got one of the other owners as a client. So when they double tapped and they monetized out from the private equity firm, I think it became a 9-figure account for that advisor. So it's go slow, but your confidence will build, at your own pace. But I kind of go back to what I said in the beginning. It's the culture in the village at Raymond James that makes this thing work. We had a banker join from a firm that will go unnamed, and he joined in the first transaction that he got signed up a company to sell was introduced by an advisor. Right? It's fabulous, right? Nice. He's come over. He called up and he called me up because we got signed up on this. I've never been able to execute a deal. It just never happened at my other firm. And I said, "Well, congratulations, and good luck. And you were great on the introductions and meeting the advisor." But what's interesting was, 6 months go by and the transaction closes. Right? So the banker calls me and says, "Ken, that transaction you introduced me to, or we got introduced to, is closing. I want to invite you," meaning me, "to closing dinner." And I said to him, "No, I'm conflicted, but the advisor, I'm sure y'all will have a great dinner." And he looked at me and he goes, "Oh my gosh, I need to go. Do I need to do that?" I go, "Yeah, you need to do that." The advisor, it didn't come from me. It came from the advisor. So he goes, "We just didn't do that. We didn't bring the advisors that introduced the deals to the closing dinners." And some firms might do that. I'm not trying to call anybody out on that. But what's interesting was the story that came after that. Because I was not at the dinner, but this was secondhand. The banker calls me up and he goes, "Yeah, we had an amazing closing dinner." And when you go to these closing dinners, when deals close, there's little deal trophies, deal toys.
Yeah.
But there's typically a point in this dinner where the attorneys are there, the accountants are there, the bankers are there, the owner's there, everyone's kind of there. And there's a point where people give speeches, right? So, the different professionals will talk, and usually the last person to talk will be the person who sold the business. And he thanks everybody. But at the end of it, because the advisor was in the room, he says, "But you know what?" And this is to the bankers hearing this and all these professionals, "But there's one person in this room that I really got to thank, because had not been for this person, this probably wouldn't have happened. This introduction would not have happened. This person was with me before, during, and honestly, from this room perspective, the only person who will be with me after this transaction is done." And he calls the advisor up and he goes over to this credenza in this back room at this restaurant. He pulls out this picture that's wrapped up, and the advisor's up there, and he unwraps the picture. And it's one of these accessories, and apparently the business owner has the same thing in his wall, and he bought it for the advisor. And it was described to me, the banker says, it was this big love fest going on between the advisor and his client. But I said to the banker on that call, I go, I really appreciate you sharing that story, because I'm able to tell it to you now. But I said to the banker, "I have one question for you now." And he goes, "What's the question?" I go, "This is Raymond James. Do you get it now?"
All right.
And he says to me, I did not. I think about these relationships differently now. And you know what? Everybody won. The company won, the bank, the firm, the advisor won, and let's do more.
I want to go back to something, and I'm just looking at the time, so we got a few minutes. I want to just go back to something, because I think that you said it once or twice, and we sort of glossed over it. And this is all about taking care of a client in all aspects, right? And doing the right thing for the client first and foremost.
Correct.
But one of the areas that is different there's a lot of areas that it's different. When you talk about the big bulge firms, and when I was at Morgan Stanley, we had a deal with one of my advisors, and I can't describe the type of firm because it'll give it away, but it was a big, huge opportunity. They had just taken a similar company public, but much smaller scale. We called the investment bankers. They basically laughed at us until they looked the company up and called us back 2 weeks later, yeah, never mind. Can we talk to the client? We're like, oh, now you want to talk to us, right? But the point was, you mentioned $350,000 commission. I know how much my friend has made on some random, I think one of the transactions he had was like a vegetable market or something like that, like a random business, towel companies, all these businesses. That's what I love about business. I go to these business owner events and stuff like that, and I meet these owners outside of our world, right? And they own just random businesses, and they make millions and millions of dollars. But can you just talk as much as you can? I don't want you to sort of say too much, but I don't think advisors understand that, yes, they're getting the assets. The goal here is, right, you want to get the investable assets, and you want to manage that, and that's how you're going to make a lot of money. And there's maybe some insurance opportunities and stuff like that, right? But we're also glossing over the fact that you pay the advisor on the transaction. Can you just talk a little about that? Because I think we sort of didn't want to talk about it. We didn't really touch on that.
So I like to think about that as the cart instead of the horse, right? I mean, the education leads the way.
Yep.
And once a business owner understands the possibilities from transactions or what's available to them, whatever the decision they make, whatever path they choose, as long as they're making it from an educated place, that's their decision, and they can sleep at night. Now, Raymond James, we pay up to 20% of our fee or revenue as a referral fee to the advisor. That hits grid, but we've got accelerated payout models that kind of drive more into the advisor pocket than their traditional payout, because that's where we want the incentive going. Remember I told you, we write referral fee, there's millions of dollars. I just chose that one transaction because it was a neat transaction that played into the story I wanted to tell. I will tell you on that one story, I'll also bring something else to light. That business where he sold, we sold it again, right? So the private equity firm hired us to sell it again. We paid the advisor again.
Right.
Frank. I think we're one of the only firms, and there could be others, but I think we're the only firm that pays a tail, right? If there is value delivered, our agreement, the investment bank's agreement with private client, is that if value is delivered, we will pay for value. And that value doesn't necessarily end after one transaction, right? So we sold that company to the private equity firm. A little under 4 years later, they hired us to sell it again. And remember, now the advisor had one of the core founders and the CFO as the client, and we paid him again. I think we paid him almost $800,000 second time. So I think the whole net is, well above 1.1 in referral fee. But yeah, that's a thank you that the firm provides. It's funny, the firm has I'll tell you this, to the extent that any advisor ever feels with any investment banking transaction they're ever treated incorrectly, they can raise their hand and they'll convene a quorum of private client and investment bank people to solve it out. Why am I telling you that? I've been here almost 16 years. We've never used it, right? It's like I said, it's a karma thing, right? So you do something good, somebody tells a couple people. You do something bad, they tell a bunch of people. And our advisors, here's an interesting statistic. Our advisors that close their first transaction, whether it's with us or a lower market firm, they're typically the ones that become the frequent flyers, right? So you want to create great experience for the clients, for their relationships, and maximize learning along the way, just building confidence. And it's, like I said, it's been tremendous for the investment bank. It's been tremendous for the advisor corps. And I think, the advisors doing this, they're having fun too. And they see that wave coming that I mentioned to you, just based on all the businesses.
So can you talk, I was going to talk to you about like you do all these different events, right? But I was at one event or conference with you a few months ago or 6 months ago, or whatever. Talk about the relationship amongst the advisors that are doing this, because I think that is really powerful, right? In that, it's great that they have investment bankers to go to and stuff like that, right? But talk about how you've built, and I don't know it's through the IBex conference, but you made a comment which I thought was really interesting about how they're sort of like teaming up, and they're I don't want to say having contests, but they're having a lot of fun doing this, and you've built this community within Raymond James that I think is really special. How are you developing those relationships amongst the advisors as well?
They take place in the classroom settings that I mentioned to you for the Masterclass. We also have advisor mentors that we assign to advisors that want to learn this, and it would be great to work with someone or have a mentor assigned to them. But again, it goes back to cultural thing. It's a pay it forward thing, and there's a little bit of self-servingness in it, because what is the greatest way to demonstrate mastery of something? It is to become a teacher of others, right? The second thing I would say is, if the programs have been able to contribute to someone's knowledge and growth and differentiation of their practice, the pay it forward dynamic on being willing or wanting to help coach the next generation, believing that the world is big enough. I mean, how about that? So many businesses, so many transactions possible, and these advisors are spread all throughout the country. Great is it to have advisors that, once they've gone through this and have reached that level of success, they're willing to carve out time to go back and train a next generation of advisor, believing that, hey, it's going to make me better, but it's also giving back to what was given to me. It's wonderful to see, and I would say that's a vast majority of the folks that have gone through the programs are willing to carry that torch and help give back. And that's been, and share their stories, or, offer best practices, or just do one-on-one Zoom calls or calls with people, or have people come into town and visit their practice, or attend their business owner events and see how they're doing it. That's kind of a unique cultural dynamic of the firm as well, but it's certainly wonderful to see.
Do you just jotted my memory here, like if a client or if an advisor, your client, if an advisor has a client that they want to try to educate them on this stuff, is this where like these bio visits come from, where you might just not really sure where to take the client, not really sure what the client's interested in terms of the needs that they have? Is it a good strategy for that advisor to invite the client down to it's a by invitation only, for those who don't know what that means, basically a home office visit, and then meet with you and or your team to just talk, like, hey, listen, tell us about the business. What are you thinking about? These are the areas. I'm just trying to figure out, like, if I'm an advisor today, how do I start this journey with you guys? And then the follow-up is, if I'm an advisor, sort of wrapping the thing up, if I'm an advisor and I'm thinking about this as an opportunity, and should I go down this road, what would be the best way for an advisor to, maybe, and they're not at the firm, right, obviously, what's the best way to approach learning about this even more, to decide whether or not this is something I want to implement in my practice if I were to leave the firm that I'm at and join Raymond James? That's really a two-part question.
Okay, so let me deal with the first one first. So the firm has a host of programs to create interaction with business owner prospects or clients, right, that might have an opportunity to benefit or learn more about any of the high net worth products or capabilities of the firm. We have a full suite of all kinds of professionals and capabilities. Investment banking is only one of them. And the firm offers a program for our advisors where, I think in many cases, the firm will actually pay for the actual travel and transportation of that relationship, prospect or client, down to the firm to be greeted and hosted on a multi-day just walkthrough of our home field and all the advantages and all the personalities and all the capabilities, kind of the firm. I would say the second question, if this is interesting to someone, right? I go back to what I said earlier. These are big decisions, right? I don't want to make a move unless I am confident that the move is going to create greater opportunity, greater value to clients, allow me to potentially enjoy the journey more and further differentiate my practice, right? So the programs I've described to you, we've got new rockstar advisors that are starting out on their path and they just want to start on this business owner path. We have advisors that are mid-career, right? And you know what? They've stalled. They're looking for something new. They want to be re-energized. They want something unique and fun. And this business owner high net focus is where I want to be. And how about this? We have some of the largest, if not the largest practices in our firm, and very large practices looking at this because, listen, for as large as they are, if there is another level to get to, it is going to come from investment banking type driven, large, chunky, high value, very differentiated offerings that have the potential to still move the needle and get to another gear if it exists. And we're very passionate about making sure that we demonstrate the program's ability to play or function in each of those scenarios, from the new to the mid-career to the absolute rock star that is still at a point where they want to see if there is another level that can yet to be achieved, and this is a way to get there. But the firm has a wonderful team of professionals inside the firm that is set up to have conversations with advisory practices, not just related to this capability, but all the capabilities, understand goals and objectives, and then talk through at granular detail any of these programs, including the IBex program and the investment banking relationship.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate this call. And, yes, it translates into, deciding on joining Raymond James or not, but that's not really what this call was really about. This call, and we talk about this all the time, is, our goal really is to empower advisors to make the right move, not just the next move. And so we talk about these things because I believe that advisors that just move for the check, right, it rarely ends up working out for them exponentially. Like they rarely end up being more fulfilled when they make the move, right? They solve the short-term problem. But when you make a move to plug into something like this, it can change your life. It changes your clients' lives because you have clients that maybe you have never been able to do this for, and they don't know who to, they have those situations and they don't know who to go to necessarily, right? And so, I want to just thank you for coming on. I know every time I talk to you, I see you in Florida. I'm like, oh my God, we got to do a podcast. This is unbelievable. I mean, I remember when I was down there, it was like 6 or 7 years ago, and you had just started doing this. And we were on a trip with a client, and it was the first time I heard it. I'm like, holy moly, and it was like at the beginning of it, so you're trying to see how it goes, and and then I just kept hearing stories and stories and stories. And so I'm glad we were able to get on here. And I hope that my audience really understands that this is an unbelievable opportunity. Yes, to do it at Raymond James is great because of all the resources you provide. But if you're not talking to your business owner clients and or prospects or centers of influence about this stuff, you're losing huge opportunity. And ultimately, really, you're putting your book at risk, because someone else is going to talk to your wealthy business owner client about this stuff, and you may end up losing that account one day, and it's going to be like, hey, I love you, Frank, but, So, Ken, thank you very much for having us on. Any last words of wisdom that you want to?
Listen, to the advisors that may be listening to this, this is how I enter meetings when I'm meeting some new relationships. I say to them, listen, if business owners, if high net worth is participating in these business transitions and asset captures, you're still interested and willing to do work and are motivated still to grow. A differentiated practice is what you're hoping to accomplish, and you still want to have some fun. At a minimum, you may want to take a look at this and just see what's under the hood and see if what you've heard kind of matches reality, and lots of references and fun. But Frank, thanks to you for your time today. Always a pleasure. I want to host you in December at the IBex conference. I expect to see you there, and thanks for your time.
Awesome. I appreciate it, Ken. Thank you.
Bye, man. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. If you're looking for more advice or solutions on any topics relating to the financial services industry, or just want to subscribe to our podcast, head on over to eliteconsultingpartners.com/podcast.